What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord. Super excited to be here with my good buddy, Dion. How's it going, my man?
Howdy. I'm doing marvelous. I'm excited about this today.
Yeah, you and me both. It's been holy cow, what a week. Um Nothing like having 5 move-ins on the weekend that you're leaving on vacation for the first time in 5 years. So, like, you know what? Other people just do 1 move-in. For some reason, I felt stupid and we needed to do 5. I was just like, I'm looking at it, I was like, holy cow, we have a lot of move-in, move-outs we got to do today. And so, yeah, it's been kind of nutty crazy, but super excited to have you here. We're going to give some time for everyone to kind of jump on because we know that there's currently only 4 people watching. And as much as we appreciate Ninja Vanis, Anna Kay, Peter Navarro III, and Dion Talk himself, as much as we appreciate all you guys coming on, hanging out and watching, we want to make sure that we have this data to share with some extra friends. So are you doing anything special for New Year's, Dion?
I'm still not even sure what I'm going to wear to the front room. I might not even go. Everybody's seen that meme. No, I'm one of those weird people. As a single parent with 3 kids, we tried not to do holidays on holidays.
Right.
So I'll be doing the New Year celebration a week late in Vegas with you.
Like, why are you guys toasting at 12 and kissing each other? It's New Year's. What's wrong with you?
New Year's, right? Exactly.
This is the Lumberjack Dion Talk idea. That's perfect. That's good stuff. Yeah, I think New Year's is here. It's been a long year, eh? Like, crazy year.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next couple of months, mostly because of real estate, right?
Agreed.
Like financial freedom, not having to work. That's what we're trying to share.
Sure.
But a lot of people kind of go into hibernation in the winter, which is generally when I tend to close most of my deals. All but one so far have been done in the winter. And I think things will start to pick up towards the spring and everybody's going to realize how hard it is with the competition. And I think we're going to see some good questions coming because hard times make hard people. And we've got some hard months coming ahead of us.
Yeah, I think so. I think the first 6 months of the coming year are going to suck for a lot of folks. There's going to be a lot of layoffs. There's going to be a lot of pain. There's going to be a lot of people saying, I told you so, based on what they think the numbers actually are. See, I told you so. They're laying off 10,000 people. See, I told you so. They're laying off 20,000 people. I know the layoffs are coming. I've been in tech for 25 years or 25 years. I know the layoffs are coming. I know because I've been talking to a lot of my VP friends that are putting their lists together of layoffs that are coming. This is the industry I work in. So for me, thankfully, no layoffs. In fact, we're adding. So I love that. But yeah, it just kind of is what it is. And I think the funny thing is that if you're less than 32 years old, you have no idea what you're in for. Because it was 08. It was 08 when that big collapse happened. If you were 18, 19, and you're heading off to college, you have no idea what you're in for. No clue. I don't think it's going to be as nearly as bad as 08, but I think that the unemployment's going to get pretty rough.
What I think sucks is anytime the tech sector is hit, it gets more attention than you would expect.
A lot more.
Because it's the platform we get our information from. It's not like in the 80s or 90s when you watch the news. So if cable TV had layoffs, it would be all you hear about right now. But right now we're seeing, and we're split. We're on social media, we're on YouTube, we're trying to educate people on YouTube University, right? In real estate.
Yes.
So you have interest rates spike. So we go from 6 million transactions a year to right around 4, right? We might even drop below 4. So there's a third of the transactions are gone. So you have tech industry getting laid off. So social media, Facebook stocks down, all these things that you're going to hear about. And then you're going to see real estate agents and lenders. And my friend that worked at a title company, they actually just closed the title company down. They didn't lay anybody off. They just said, hey, nobody works here anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to see that seems like it's everywhere. But having run a truck driving school and knowing this time of year and the seasonality with the sign-on bonuses to go drive a truck, the other companies that are working, the industries that are hiring.
Yeah.
If you own properties in Silicon Valley and all of your renters are paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month and they work in tech and they're about to lose their $150,000, $200,000 a year job, you might be in trouble. But if you have Class C properties in an area that's diversified with several economic drivers, with non-tech, non-real estate, how many real estate agents rent from you? Like, it can't be more than half, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So for me, it's
No.
unless there's somebody who has a license and does it, one thing a year, it's zero. So I'm not going to be affected by tech. Nobody who works for me works in tech, or nobody who rents for me works in tech. Nobody who rents for me is in full-time real estate. That's their job. None of them are lenders. None of them are agents. None of them are brokers. But it's all we're going to hear about.
Oh, dear Lord. Well, it's because everything is so personal for everybody, right? It's like me, my four, and no more. And that's typically what you see. And so when you see the me, my four, and no more syndrome is what I call it. It's like, you don't understand it. The market collapsed. You don't understand. You're in one of the 4 jobs that the market collapsed on. The rest of the market is doing just fine. And while that will lead to, I believe it's still going to lead to a recession. While I believe that it's going to lead to significant pain for some, this is not the collapse of a system that we have on our hands. Based on my 22 years experience, I still believe property is going to, what's really amazing to me is that people think that I don't think the market's going to go down. They clearly don't watch enough of my content, because I say everywhere in my content, 10 to 20% drop by the end of 2024. It's everywhere. And Mike Zuber will constantly remind me because he wants my dollar. So that being said, I still believe in a 10 to 20% drop by the end of 2024. I think that that's going to happen. And again, at the end of the day, if it doesn't, okay, cool. If it does, okay, cool. I can't fight the Fed. I can't fight the tape. I can't fight all of those things. All I have to do is evaluate each deal based on the fundamentals and based on the numbers. And that's how I make my decision for investment.
Well, and there's 2 prongs to that attack when they go. First, they haven't watched your content because they don't know that you're calling for down. Zuber's calling for flat. Yep. I'm saying inflation's going to make it seem like it went up, even though it might come down nominally.
Yep.
It's gonna go up by the physical amount of dollars it would take to buy the asset. That's my opinion. We're all there. But the second prong is the Crash Bros cheerleaders who come in the comments and go, you own assets in this asset class, so you're creating content like we affect the market, trying to prop up the value, because that's what they not only don't watch your content, but they don't understand how an investor works.
Right.
We don't care about net worth. We don't care about the value of the property. It comes down to cash flow. Financial freedom doesn't come from equity. You can't eat it.
Did they create a bunch of units for these 70 renters that I have to say no to on every one of my properties?
Right. Exactly.
No, they didn't. There's no more inventory there. And any inventory that's hitting is hitting in markets that are already oversaturated. It's hitting in Phoenix. It's hitting in Las Vegas. Those projects, that stuff that's coming on board is coming on board in areas it's going to be A class. And that's the other thing too, is I think everybody would be done a huge favor if they look at the price reductions in A class, B class, C class, and D class. Dion, is D class going to get price reduced in this upcoming recession?
No.
Can't go any lower. Is C class going to get price reduced in this coming recession?
No.
Is B class going to get reduced in this coming recession?
No.
A class is largely where you're going to find your losses. All these 5 units that I just rented out, they are all more than what the previous lease was. Bad news, Crash Bros. Nothing crashed. Nothing went down. And Dion, I'm astonished. I'm renting these during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Now, I didn't have the same size pool of people to pull from.
Right. 70 is not 130.
Right. But, and this time it was, so the ones that we started marketing 3 of these units in the first week of December. We probably had 15 to 20 inquiries per. And of those 15 or 20, I would say 80% of them didn't qualify out of the chute. So 20% did. So definitely agreed, granted, we didn't have this big pool of renters. But if you look at any chart, it will show you seasonally. It goes like this, and it's trending upwards or it's trending downwards. But every single one of them does this hoop. Every single one of them does this half moon, because it's seasonally. It's seasonally what we experience as landlords. No one's renting in Thanksgiving or Christmas or just after the first of the year. So you start marketing in January, and I'm going to have a ton. I mean, the few that we have opening, for February, we're going to have a ton of inquiries, I think.
And to point out so Millennial Mike just came out with a video, really good on
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal, right? So the
Phenomenal.
second one came out. So right, it's multiple to get into it. And a couple of the comments are like, what's the obsession with this guy? And it's not that guy. There's a bunch of channels that are getting a lot of views because they're selling fear and they don't understand the industry. They'll say things like rents have come down, completely ignoring that what happens before rents come down.
Yeah.
Owners do concessions. We haven't seen hardly any concessions coming out yet. We're seeing the talk of them now. That happens before rent decreases.
Yep.
Now you list a property at a number you hope to get, and if it doesn't go, you lower it. That's good business.
That's right. Sure.
But it's not, you were at this amount last year, let's renew this year at a lower amount. That's not happened anywhere. Dana from Hemlane, 18,500 units, 3,000 owners, not one lease renewed at a lower amount than last year. Some were flat.
Right.
I'm doing flat. I did a freaking binder strategy and got 20 to 28% increase last year. I'm not going to raise rents on tenants this year.
Agreed.
But next year, so does it look flat, or did I go, what do I do with all this extra money? I'm not going to ask for more. Like, that's literally what went through my brain. I'm getting so much more from last year because, thank you. I'm not going to say the word that can get your money taken away from the channel, but the issues of 2020 that hurt everybody.
Yes.
Because they benefited people who owned the assets. So we're trying to get people into the position where they own the assets, so they'll benefit from the next thing.
Absolutely. And we're not, and that's the thing is, as landlords, like, we're not trying to squeeze out every last dime. And if we have a good tenant, like, guess what? Good tenants get to stay. And we are very measured in how we have that conversation with them. But yeah, I think that the girly man, and the reason, and I can call him that, it's not defamatory because his last name is in fact Gurley. It's appropriate, but he is the girly man.
It's okay. I have a girly first name, so I'll take it.
So it's not though. No, Dion is very unisex. Isn't it?
I don't think I've ever met anybody in person who heard about me in advance who didn't go, first, you're a guy. Second, you're not the color I expected. I literally showed up at the police department I worked at. When I showed up on my box because they saw my name, there was a token hanging there. They thought they hired their first token because Dion, right? So I'm used to that. I'm okay with it.
That was a little bit of an overshare. Wonderful, but overshare.
I blame it on the water.
Yeah. Dion, it's 9:14, bro.
You can't drink all day unless you start early, Matt. Pay attention. Hopefully you survive Vegas.
My only question is the intervention going to be live? Exactly.
If I come in for an intervention, it's going to be about gaming, not drinking.
I literally said to somebody, I said, listen, I have a friend of mine. He literally retired this year because he wasn't getting enough World of Warcraft time in. And I said, and now he is, and it's good. And they're like, seriously? And I go, when you have financial freedom, you do whatever you want. He can always show up for the no pants dance. It doesn't make a difference. He's in perfect position to do so. So Amafid, thank you very much for the 99 cents, my friend. I appreciate it. Please feel free to ask a question as always. Ninja Vanish, good morning. Anna K, happy, healthy, successful real estate investing year to everyone. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Peter Navarro, good to have you here. What's up? All-nighter hider in the house. How you doing, my friend? First 2 rentals for you this year? Yeah, I hope so. I think you're doing the work, and I think you're going to have the opportunity. And you are a man with a unique set of skills. So I think you'll be in perfect shape to execute.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. We have hundreds of units. Mm-hmm. You and Zuber and Millennial Mike growing that way. Financial fighter in Hawaii getting 14 in a year by tapping on his retirement. Awesome. And then me, like 1 in 2 years, 1 in 2 years, 1 in a year and a half, like super slow start. All night a header comes in and goes, 2 is attainable. It's significantly faster than what Dion did. It's using the systems that the REI Avengers have used, putting them all together to coming up with. I totally see that happening for you in this year. I
really do. Yeah, I agree with that. Mark Ham, good morning or good afternoon. Jeremy Kirkwood. Hi, gents. Happy New Year. Hey, Jeremy. Happy New Year to you. All-nighter hider. People are very quick to judge based on just a few words. That's sad. Well, I mean, it leaves them only ever on a hot trend. And if you're only ever on a hot trend, by the time it's a hot trend, you're behind. And that's what they don't realize. In life, those people consistently lose because they ride it up. They get a little bit of a ride up, but then they get usually the entire ride down. And so it's just one of those things.
That judging people by a few words, I've actually taken an oath to never talk to anybody who's in the middle of an ethics class again because of all the weird crap they try to put in your head. But there was a study done on our generation, Gen X, and it was probably done by a boomer, but Gen X's attention span was shrinking to where you would see a write-up. We're so used to getting context over the radio and on TV before YouTube University in our early generation, where we would read the first paragraph and last paragraph of a write-up to figure out, okay, what are they trying to say? And what was the conclusion? Like, we don't have time for this meet in the middle. We're just going to skip through. That's changed now to, the millennials and Gen Z to the first couple of words of a paragraph to get the idea of what the paragraph is. They don't even read the paragraph. And that's considered normal. It's not a study on like saying, oh, people are lazy. It's people have shifted to the content has to come in this quick, or I don't have the time for this. The judgment happens on the shortest amount of data possible, just like it does on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Oh, man, my chat moved. Here we go. Dishes every day. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good to have you here. Guys, that reminds me real quick. Uneducated Economist has a membership now. He is giving the deal of a lifetime. It's $1. It's $1. Go out there and get that membership. I love the fact that I actually caught the video that he posted this morning 57 seconds after he posted it. And man, it is awesome. So guys, go check out Uneducated Economist, become a member. It's $1 a month. Like, you spend more than that on everything else in your life. It's $1. Absolutely subscribe. It's well worth it. You get the stuff earlier than everybody else does, and you're getting it literally like top of mind. So anyway, absolutely fantastic. Go check it out. So glad that you joined us because, again, Simon, absolutely awesome. And George Gammon interview, awesome. Peter Schiff interview, awesome. It's important that we hear all sides out. It's important that we understand where everyone is coming from so we can start to form our own opinion and then invest as such. If you have an opinion and you're not spending like that, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. There's far too many people that are listening and have an opinion, but they're not spending their money in the way that they have an opinion. Those are people I have no use for. You can have an opinion about the housing market and you can be getting ready to buy something. Okay. But if you have an opinion about the housing market and you think that everything is going to oblivion, but you're still in your house, you haven't sold out your house to rent it because things are going to go down 50%. Well, then which is it? Are you stupid or are you lazy? It's one of the two. And it's not Dion's kind of lazy. It's a different kind of lazy. So yeah, anyway, I digress. Sierra Smith, good morning. Jeremy, we are seeing many more requests for managing A-class short-term rentals because of inability or unwillingness to sell. Yeah, I would think so. I think people that were doing STRs would try and sell, but then they can't, or don't try and sell because they think it's still the gold mine that they think it is. And now they're looking for other people to come off and fix it and manage it. So I think that's great.
Graham Stephan had a video the other day on short-term rentals with Shelby Church, and she had one where she was losing money. So he was reacting to her video, which is smart, infinite monetization, right? Here was the strategy she was using to improve cash flow on her rental. She hired a professional photographer. They showed before and after pictures of here's the ones that she had listed, taken with an iPhone, decent. And then, holy crap, look at how this place looks when a professional takes the photos. And she made a shift that I talked about in my video yesterday, allowing pets at a short-term rental increased the number of people trying to rent it there because it's a limitation that a lot of people put in place. And so we're going to see that. We're going to see people with short-term. There's a whole spectrum. I can't do it. I'm out of here. I have to sell. I'm going to switch to midterm. I'm going to switch to long-term. I'm going to move back in, like all of those things, or I'm going to get better at it.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see. Gurley had to consciously ignore metrics in real estate to make his claims. Yeah, that's the bone that I have to pick. I don't have the bone to pick that people share data, but you have to share data with how it fits into the market. And that's his biggest issue. He used to be an underwriter. And because he was an underwriter, he is very myopic. He's not very understanding of how things fit into the general market and who that affects by those things, because he's not an economist. And that's why listening to him is, quite frankly, a huge mistake.
Well-
and if you've been watching him for 2.5 years, you've already made those huge mistakes.
I mean, Millennial Mike points it out really well.
Yes.
They're literally talking single family house.
Yep.
And cap rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Okay. Like no one uses cap rates for single.
Not on single family. It doesn't apply. It's not a metric you can use. So what's the thing with where you compare two things that aren't related, but they trend the same? Like physical attacks and ice cream, increase in sales and decrease
correlation versus causation.
Correlate, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they were looking at. It's like you put some words fancy to where part of the brain says, oh, that makes sense, but you don't think it all the way through. And you get followers.
I was going to say, and then you get his videos. Let's see. Whose channel are we on? We're on the Lumberjacks channel. Thanks, Snyder, for showing up. John Williams, Matt asked Dion this other day, what books do you recommend in 2023? Already own the 2 Zerber books. I don't recommend books because I don't read any. In all honesty, I don't read. Dion's the reader of the two of us. He's the gamer of the two of us. I don't read or listen to books hardly ever. What I spend my time doing is talking to people out there, because I want to always know what's going on in my market at that moment, because that's how I'm making business decisions. So while there is, content like Uneducated Economist and George Gammon and guys like that, I'll consume their content, and obviously Zoob, I'll consume that content. Then when but for the most part, the time that I spend is getting my finger on the pulse of my market, what's happening in my market, what's going on in my market, and then sharing that with people to say, hey, this is what's happening in my market right now. Maybe that will come to your market. Maybe it won't. But I think the other thing too is I didn't see the famous Nick post anything about the $110 billion fund that was just announced on Wall Street that's going to buy 244,000 homes. Yeah, that's right. If they're median priced homes, 244,000 homes. That's a massive number. And they're buying them for cash because it's in a fund, Nick. So yeah, It's like, go ahead.
I'd like to point out something about the books thing where you called me the gamer, the reader, and everything. And then you talked about how you don't take in books. Right.
It's true.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me go through the checklist really quick.
Okay.
So 3 kids under 5.
Yes.
Okay. Married, want to have a decent relationship.
Yeah, I do.
Full-time W-2. Did you kind of skip out on Fridays to do with this?
That's the best marital advice you gave me.
Okay, good. So
you'll make the marriage work.
You guys self-manage over 100 units.
Yes. Yeah.
And you create content on YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. So all of those things put together with, you listed off at least 5 content creators.
Yes.
Who almost everyone you listed off consumes books.
Yes.
So you filter the information through them.
Yes.
And you watch that. So imagine how many people right now, and they're not watching this. So this is not anybody seeing this video now or in Futureland, who don't take in financial, real estate, stocks, crypto. It doesn't matter expand the brain with actual information that can benefit you financially.
Yes.
But they work. They say, I don't want to think about money. So they work 40 or 50 hours a week for it, 60 hours a week for the money.
Sure.
They come home and then they pay for streaming services to watch things that don't educate you at all, but they entertain you and they check your brain out. Who will say, I never have time to learn or educate myself. And it's like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett always say 50 books a year, the average millionaire, a book a year or none, not right.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to take in this information where it doesn't have to be physically picking up a book or listening to an audible. It could be the content that you're taking in. And so I think you're a bit off. I think you are a huge content consumer. It's just,
Yes.
you don't think of it as books,
Yes,
even though
sure.
it's the same information.
It is. That's true. Yeah. I think I always try and differentiate that, because I think that there is a difference. And a lot of times, if you think about it, a book, I've written a book or I'm in the process of writing a book. I think what's really interesting is if you look at it, it is a year in the process, and then editing, and then all the other stuff. So those are my thoughts over a year's period. And then it's going to take 6 months to bring to market. And so that information's 18 months old. And I think concepts are kind of cool, but usually you can depend on the really smart people that you consume their content. I can lean on them because a lot of Simon's views are the same as mine. And so I can lean on that. A lot of, Mike's views on a lot of things are the same. And so I can kind of lean on that. Dion too. Dion's got like 500 and something books in your Audible. And so when we talk about it, he'll bring up a concept. I'll form my opinion, and then he'll tell me why my opinion's wrong, because he likes to flip it on its head. And it's good because it's that perspective. And he does it in a way that's genuine, not it's like, trying to get views or clicks. It's just like, hey, have you thought about this angle of it? And that's where having guys, having our relationship like we have, where we text stuff to each other, send articles to each other, getting that within that group. It's not an echo chamber by any means. We push each other, we test each other. We formulate opinions based on some of the things that we see. And yeah, so that's how I consume information. So far anyway. Let's see. So sorry, John, I would give you a book, but honestly, I think the best thing for me is that I spend the time when after my entire family's asleep and I'm then working on leases or paperwork or whatever, I'll have something on in the background, but it's something that's more kind of like ambient light as opposed to direct. So I'm just like so I actually do really well with multitasking and hearing something else in the background. And now all-nighter hider. Now you have to get to 2 rentals. Yeah, you do. D and I will feel like we failed. Antoine Davis, Dion, token talk. LOL. Funny story. Yes, it is. I'm like, oh my gosh, where is this going? Jeff, what's up, my man? Yo, yo, yo. Good to have you here, Jeff. Angel R. Matt, I'm dealing with bursted pipes. What are your thoughts on PEX A and Upanor fittings? Or would you choose PEX B with stainless steel clamp rings? I should probably hire a plumber. So it really depends on application, and it really depends, not only does it depend on application, but also depends a little bit on preference. So for me, I actually, if I'm repairing a burst pipe, usually a burst is no more than 2 or 3 inches, usually, or it's a fitting section. It might be a 90, which makes this shape. It might be a 45, which makes this shape. And so what I typically look at is what's the application. Number 2 is if I have a burst in a certain area, as I said, it's less than 2 or 3 inches. Most of the time, a burst is like 1 inch to 1.5 inches. That's where on my Lumberjack Landlord series, I did a review on the Milwaukee snipping tool. It's like $119, but you can use that Milwaukee snipping tool. You can actually section out that piece, and then you can actually section back in another piece of copper. And you can usually do that with either like a shark bite, and that can be a full-time fix. Or I've also used like a crimping tool, but you can literally call a plumber and say, hey, I just need you to come in and crimp a piece in. You can buy the tools. The problem is, and I recommend it if you're going to be a self-managing landlord, because it will pay for itself 100 times over in 10 years. But I bought that crimping tool and it's about $1,500. But that crimping tool and each of those crimping, what are called couplings, they're what connect the new pipe to the existing pipe. But that crimping tool is exactly what most guys will use when they come up and make the repair. They're usually not going to heat up and unsolder and then put back. So my preference is, yes, PEX is more resistant. However, if I already have all copper that's already existing, I'm likely going to section out the pipe, and I'm just going to resection pipe, and I'm going to use the crimp. That's a job that I can do in about 15 minutes. So I don't even need to call a plumber. And that's the type of stuff that we'll teach in, oh shit, I'm a landlord, now what? We'll teach you some hands-on skills with some tools like that, because if you're planning on growing to 2 or 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 units, and you want to jump in and save yourself the $150 or $200 call, did I do 3 calls over Christmas and New Year, or Christmas and Christmas Eve? I did 3 emergency calls. All 3 of those calls combined would have cost me $1,000. It was a total of 1 hour of my work, 1 hour. I was happy to do it. Wasn't a big deal. We actually made a family thing of it because I'm broken and I want my kids growing up in the business, because I want them to understand the value of a dollar. And I also want them to understand that we can fix things ourselves. And if we don't know how to do it, we will take the time to figure it out. So hopefully that's helpful to you. But yeah, on the PEX thing, it really does come down to application and preference. Peter Navarro III, I plan to start slow, 1 first year, then compounds afterward. It makes sense. Peter, great plan. It's a great plan. That's how I started. That's how Dion started. It's a great plan. Jeff M, sup all nighter. That's right. Let's see. Comedy gold. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, it was probably Dion. Let's see. Yeah, bummer you're still on that, Angel. I agree. Ninja Vanish. He had Peter Schiff on there recently. Yeah, he just had him on like 3 days ago, and I think Gammon was like a week ago. So yeah, they were awesome. The more perspectives, the better. Totally agree. Theta Hedge Capital. What's up, peeps? All nighter. Good morning. Theta Hedge Capital. Hider. Yep. Rob. Merry Friday. Agreed. Merry Friday, Rob. Larry Weiss. Happy New Year, fellas. Striving to acquire first investment property over here in Spokane, Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho region. Very cool, Larry. Dion, didn't you look in that region a little bit?
So Spokane is like 3 hours away for me, pretty much. That side of the mountain, Moses Lake would be more where I would look. Spokane is in kind of like a Tri-Cities area. There's a bigger population there. That it's too far from me for self-managing, and I wasn't looking to go out of distance. So no, but I do know several people in this area who do invest there. The numbers tend to make more sense. The rents aren't very far off, but the home prices are significantly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Jeff M, has anyone seen Gammon's opinion on how the majority of mortgages under 3% actually being the problem? He makes it sound like the lenders are going to go insolvent because their returns will be eroded. So yes, I've seen that. And I think that where Gammon excels is in the math. And I think that he can, based on factual math, I think that he builds out scenario. The challenge is it involves human behavior. And if you ever try and model human behavior, that's the most difficult thing to do, because at the end of the day, people are going to give their life in most cases to not lose their home. And so even if the bank goes insolvent, that's 30-year fixed rate debt that's backed by Fannie Freddie. So while it might be insolvent, guess what? Fannie and Freddie are the money behind that. The banks are only the servicers. That's my thought, Dion.
So I didn't see Gammon's video, but I was watching a different video, a different channel where somebody was trying to explain that. And I didn't leave a comment because it would have been tacky. But they explained half of the equation. Yeah. And they left out the part where it's all BS. So we think a bank does a 30-year mortgage at 3%, and then the Fed fund rate goes to 4%. So now the bank's under 1%, right? Because that's how our brain sees percentages. Absolutely 100% ignoring fractional lending.
Right.
You put $10 in the bank, they lend it out 9 times at that increased percent.
That's right.
9 times, not that 3% equals 3%, 3% equals 3% 9 times. Now the money that it took to do that cost you 4%. You compress your margin some, but you're still in a fractional lending bank system. So I didn't see Gammon's. I don't know if he addressed that, but the one I was watching, I wanted to like climb through the screen and go, you're selling some fear by saying, here's half the data. Now ignore how everything really works. But right. Look, this is scary. I don't know that Gammon, I've only seen the one video of his where he was on Uneducated Economist. And like I said, super smart, way above my level on that kind of stuff. But let's put both sides of the banking system out there where they're not insolvent because they're lending your money out.
I think so too, because they also, even though they let you borrow it at 3%, then they have the power to lend out on that 9 times X, 9X. The issue is that they're lending all the way up the rate increase, right? 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. It's not like they deployed that capital right away. It's not like they deployed that multiple right away. So I think that, yeah, Gammon is about as good as it gets, but there are a couple areas where I disagree with him. And I'd love to hear him shout me down. I would love to have that conversation with him because I could be wrong. I only know how my banks, when I have those conversations with them, they portfolio a bunch of loans, but often there's a reason why it's pegged to the 10-year. Because usually that bond that they're buying is that long. So may they have a problem 10 years from now, maybe, you know, if that's the same note, if that's the same bond on the same note that I have with the bank. I believe that's how it works. Rob, only barely binge watched Netflix last night. Nice. Jeff M, that's if inflation continues at these numbers. I think inflation continuing at these numbers, we're already seeing inflation come down. Now, let's just be honest, because we all know that I have that honest bone in me. The fact of the matter is that yes, inflation is coming down. That's with a massive strategic release of our petroleum reserves, number one. We haven't filled that up yet, number two. And so that's drastically erased a lot of the increase that we have. Still much higher than it was, but better, right? Significantly better. However, that also being said is it's also believing that the number that they're reporting on housing is accurately captured, which it is not. It's as if they basically ask homeowners, what's the rent equivalent? And then that's how they say rents went up. They're not talking to landlords saying, what was your rental increase that you did this year? They're not talking to guys like me and Dion or Zoob or Millennial Mike. They're not talking to us. They're not saying those things. So because they're not saying those things, guess what? You're getting a much muted number, one that's less involved with reality. And I think I'm not saying that they're misguiding anybody, but if you look at how the data is collected, that's what's drastically skewing the number. They're saying that housing raised something like 5.6%. Want to bet?
Yeah, my tenants asked for over 20% increase because that was half of what was actually happening in the market.
Exactly.
In our area.
Completely agree. Jeremy Kirkwood, we reduce completion by allowing a competition by allowing pets in all our rentals. Yep. Med and short term. Very cool. A fun game to go to any market and add a pet on Airbnb reduces inventory by 80%. People bring animals anyway. Absolutely 100%. And then they're nervous about being caught. And so you might not get the call about X, Y, or Z. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. I do pets.
And then they do a 3-minute Google search and print out a fake ESA form.
Exactly. And that's the thing is most states don't disqualify an ESA. If they have an ESA, you have to take it. Mm-hmm. And if anybody ever wants to know the difference between an ESA, was that in your video? I saw you post the video. I didn't
talk about the difference because in most areas there's no different. It's like if a doctor prescribes a trained, certified animal, or a doctor says you can have a parrot that sits on your shoulder because it makes you calmer, that has to be recognized in our state. So I just left that alone.
So Dion is right. It's the same in our state right now. They are moving to create legislation otherwise, because there is conversation of whether or not you can charge a pet fee if it's a required animal.
Yeah, you can't in our state, even ESA.
Yeah. So interesting in our state is I believe, I can't remember which way it is because it's a legislation that I read. That's the kind of boring stuff the lumberjack reads. Antoine, question for both of you. I have a unit that's been vacant since November. Yep. I have someone who is interested and they have a voucher, but not the best credit. Thoughts? Dion. What's not the best?
Make sure I get the question right here. I have a unit that's been vacant since November. I have someone who is interested and they have a voucher. So they have a voucher. They're going through the housing authority. So deposit increase is not legal in some places if credit is lower. So you have a few options with that, depending on your local laws. I don't budge on credit score. I don't care about income. I don't care about anything else. I care about evictions and credit score, and I'm consistent. So if you've been vacant since November, a brand new landlord or a not educated, I don't want to hesitate to use uneducated investor because that would think of economist who is very smart, but an investor hasn't really put the time in yet is going to tell you, well, you just lower the rent and get somebody in there quicker. you make a concession first, like an apartment complex would. Apartment complexes don't lower their rent. They go half months free to move in, especially in the winter, because winter's special because nobody wants to move in the winter here or a month off or whatever. That way you have rent at the amount that you wanted, and next year an increase is easier because you have a tenant in place if you need to, or you maintain that higher rent throughout the year. I wouldn't budge on credit, but that's me. Other people have made adjustments and are probably just fine. But I've never had a vacancy. I've never had an eviction.
Yep.
I think all the other benefits. Oh, I've never had a later missing rent payment in 10 years. 10 years.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think that this is a horrible answer, Antoine. Dion's right and I'm right. I would do it a little bit differently. I have people where I lean on credit score, because if you've never been late, you'll never be late. Usually is the rule, unless something catastrophic happens, but that means most people with high credit scores identify themselves with that credit score. Oh my word, he's heating himself up.
Well,
Yeah,
I saw Rob made a comment about the size of my jacket. I'm like,
that's awesome.
You have no idea.
And so, I like to see, for me, it's much more, I want to know that you're if you're on a voucher, I just want to know that you have 3x with the expenses on the unit, what your expenses are going to be on the unit. And that means that, if I have like what's called a full use voucher means that Section 8 pays everything. Well, then there's really no income qualifier. Like there really can't be. So then at that point, it just becomes no evictions. But if they're new to Section 8, or if they're in Section 8, if you've ever been evicted, you can't get a Section 8 voucher in my state. I don't know if it's like that in yours.
I heard it was a 5-year delay, but there's a 5-year wait list. So I think the person it wasn't an informed conversation.
Makes
An
sense.
eviction for me is a no-go forever. So it doesn't matter Section 8 or not. So that's why I've never really had that conversation.
Yeah. And so the same thing for us, an eviction if you've been evicted before, it's a no-go for us. We're not interested. It takes a lot of landlords to evict somebody. It's time consuming, it's expensive. And so if you've been through that process before, you likely caused it. And it's very rare that was a landlord thing. All-nighter hider, he suggested to sell long-term tax favored asset for short-term gains that get taxed heavily, then have to redeploy those funds. That's just dumb. Agreed. Technics. Hey, love the show. Own a duplex that cash flows. Have enough cash to pay off the duplex and be debt free and 3x the cash flow. Or would it be smart to pay off and be debt free, or look for more? Dion.
So there is a chronology to investing. If you're in growth phase, paying down good debt is one of the biggest, probably top 3 biggest mistakes people make in growth phase. That doesn't mean there's not a point in time in your investing and the span of your life where paying off good debt might make sense. I'm not even there yet. You might go, I can triple the cash flow. You'll get more cash flow. But the yield on paying down debt isn't as good as the yield plus appreciation, plus additional pay down, plus resetting a depreciation schedule. Like all of the benefits of adding a rental when you're in growth phase far outweigh, I would say, an interest rate up to 10%. Above 10%, I might start looking at paying off debt on good debt, depending on the yield though. But on 10% or less, it doesn't make really much sense to pay off good debt if you can find deals. Later, when you have rentals and you've reached financial freedom, it might make sense to pay off debt to increase cash flow. If you're lazy like me and 16 units is enough and you don't want to add any more, you might even sell one to pay off debt to have a couple less units. I'm not there yet. It's a thought that's kind of hovering out here, but I can't mentally make sense of it, because the yield on adding a property, the profit, like you include yield, cash flow, appreciation, pay down, all that stuff together is exponentially better on. I mean, I wish I had $10 million in debt instead of 1.8 million. And I would never look at paying it off, because having a paid off property means nothing to me. It's actually a little bit more dangerous. You don't have a bank in first position if you get sued. So you don't have a form of asset protection of one of the 3 forms of asset protection that I like. But that doesn't mean if you have somebody and they're 70 and they're going, yeah, I'm just going to pay off debt. It's easier. And they don't want to add more and they're super lazy, as lazy as I am. Sure, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're in growth phase and you have a duplex and the goal is to have 5, right? Get to 4 properties.
Yeah.
You're not going to get there by paying off debt. That is, and I want to use a strong word, and this is not directed at you. It's directed at my opinion of paying off good debt. It's the dumbest thing you can do. And so that wasn't at the person asking the question.
Sure.
Sorry, that was me thinking. I've thought about paying off debt. And I
Conceptually,
sit back after thinking about it, after asking Zuber and Lumberjack, like, what would I do in my situation? I have realized it's the dumbest thing I could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's all the reasons that Dion cited. I mean, really, it's like, I don't want to pay off that debt. And in fact, as soon as I pay off debt, guess what I do? I lever it back up. Like
you had the expense to create that debt.
Yes.
You had that, maybe bought the rate down. You had the closing costs, the appraisal. Yes. So you did all that to get the debt, then you want to pay it off and then have that debt again. Whereas you've already spent that money.
Yep.
Benefit from long-term fixed rate debt and then create more.
Agreed. Invest to Wealth. Hello. Happy holidays. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. You're very welcome. Happy to be here. Jeff M. Message retracted. Now Dion's head's going to explode. Ninja Vanish 24/7. Haha. I'm sure that was because I said something funny. Laura Samaniego. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to have you here. REI Stoners. Good morning, sir. Who's going to buy the mortgage-backed sausages? I don't know either. So here's the thing, guys. So yes, there's the CDOs, but while there are the CDOs, again, if it's mortgage debt, often Fannie and Freddie, they're the ones that own that debt. Does anyone know what percentage of debt they actually own on residential properties? 90. They own 90% of that debt. So when you have 90% of that debt, guess what? Fannie and Freddie own 90% of the residential debt. So the banks are servicers. So what ends up happening is, yeah, it would just be like, it would be the same thing that like Merrill and Countrywide and all these other things. When the Great Recession happened, when the Great Financial collapse happened, when that happened, it was Countrywide was basically pretty much given to Bank of America. And then the federal government said, you keep on servicing, we're still holding the debt, and we'll make sure that we're backstopping losses on that debt. That's basically the story that would happen. So that's where I think things, if things get all pukey again, that's the type of move that they've already done before. And we all know that Washington isn't original. So they'll probably do something of the same again. I just don't see things getting there. I think what we're signing up for is a fraction of the normal transactions that we normally see, because inventory is not going to really show up. Because Simon said it best, Uneducated Economist said it best this morning in his morning reel. He flat out said the biggest issue you're going to have is all these people with sub 3% mortgages not leaving. That's what's going to happen. They're going to do everything they can. Dion?
Yeah. So like in reference to the Gammon video where they were talking about the 3% might take away the profits for the lenders. That's not the problem. The problem is people with, under 4% mortgages are looking at now 5 or 6% mortgages, can't sell, can't move up. They have that mortgage trap. That's what's going to limit supply more than what we've seen, which goes into my argument of nominally, I don't see prices coming down.
Yep. Yeah, agree. All Nighter and Jeff, good conversation. That's exactly right. It really depends on who is, the government's that final backstop. But that's where a lot of those banks, they don't carry that paper, and they don't carry nearly as much of it as Fannie and Freddie do. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. Hold on one second. Sorry, I have somebody in the field doing an inspection. Let's see. REI Stoners, does the home inspector tell you what is and isn't winterized in the house? No. If that question is regarding like you're doing an inspection when you're buying it, usually not. And winterized means different things. Winterized can mean it's taken care of, so when winter comes, that it's not going to be a problem. It also means that people winterize homes where they flush all the pipes. They put antifreeze mix in the pipes, so you don't have any bursts because that material won't freeze, but you still have fluid in the pipes. So it can mean two different things, but I've not seen any inspector do that. Dion, you?
So yeah, it really comes down to what you mean by winterize. I've seen in inspection reports where they say this pipe is exposed, it's not insulated correctly, it's going to be an issue in cold weather. So I don't think they use the term it wasn't winterized, but they pointed out something I would want to winterize by saying, let me wrap that and they make it right. I don't think any of my properties have sprinkler systems because we fight plant growth in Washington. We don't encourage it. And so yeah, no, I've never seen the term used, but they do check for things that could have problems in cold weather.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Here it's, again, it depends what you mean by winterize. Jeff, all-nighter hider. Yeah, credit would be tight. Yeah, that's exactly what happened before. So in the great financial crisis, that's what happened. Credit disappeared. And so people couldn't get home loans. People couldn't get deals done. Like I had a deal that went on with Wells Fargo for 120 days. That was completely absurd for the time. Roldan Crespo, appreciate the Avengers filling up the void Zuber left on Fridays and Saturdays. We are happy to do it. Abundance, health, prosperity to all in 2023. Thank you very much, Roldan. Jeff, all-nighter to Jeff, not easy to prioritize crisis damage. Yes, correct. Absolutely. Mark Ham, hey, Matt, how do we get or find your course? I'm actually moving out of my house hack and think your course will be awesome to get help and learn how to from during the process. I agree with you. So there is a video on my channel that actually is named, oh shit, I'm a landlord, now what? I go through the entire syllabus so you can qualify whether or not you think that that's going to help or not. And then right in the description area and also pinned in the video, in the description area, there's a link for pre-order download, and we'll be making an announcement next week on the exact date, and it's pretty soon. So yeah, I think you'll learn a lot from that. I think anybody that is self-managing, there are some silver bullets in there, but there are more like 70, 80, 90 things that you can do that add up to a lot. I don't know what the reverse of death by 1,000 cuts is, Dion, but it's the reverse of that. You don't get the death by 1,000 cuts because you're basically ensuring all of these things are addressed. That way, what we're always trying to do is drastically reduce the amount of drag that it takes to manage your properties, and also recognizing that we will do construction, we will do value add, we will add a lot of those things to people's repertoires, because that drastically opens the number of properties you can go after and buy. Let's see. Trucking Landlord, thanks for the live inspiration. You're very welcome. Redion, proud to say this is the only channel I have notifications for. Thank you, Redion. I appreciate that. All-nighter hider, but go over and do Dion's too, because his stuff is worth watching. Except Redion is a fellow Granite Stater. So good to have you. Great explanation on Jeff's question. No one is right all the time. Yeah, I think Dion needs a parrot for his wedding dress up gigs. He don't you have one on your shoulder there that's like a stuffed one?
This is too far into the weeds, so I won't go too much. No, I have an eye patch. It's a pirate outfit, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And at the right weddings, I'll have the little flying spaghetti monster on my shoulder. So it replaces the parrot.
Nice. Perfect. Let's see. Rob says, I think Dion needs an emotional support pirate parrot.
We had a student come through our CDL school who had an emotional support parrot. It was PTSD trained. Whenever his stress would go up, it would nibble on his ear. VA is creative. So
I love it. That's awesome. Theta Hedge Capital, pet fee versus higher rent. Dion?
Both. So I talked about this in my video yesterday.
Yep.
So you eliminate 80% of your competition when you allow pets, because most people don't. And over half the population has a pet. So you have an increased demand on something that has limited supply. You are going to get a rent premium. And then you charge a pet fee. You don't call it a deposit because by definition, the legal term deposit means refundable. So you can't say non-refundable deposit. That gets thrown out of court. It doesn't work. So you call it one-time pet fee and then a monthly pet fee and higher rents.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Laura, San Diego, my duplex came with a tenant in place. The tenant had a zoo in this 2-1 unit, a big turtle, a huge rabbit, 2 dogs, a bird, and a lot of roaches. I'd evict the roaches.
Well, it depends on whether they're in a cage or not.
I'd still evict
You
them.
got a kid with roaches. I'm not going to make a kid throw away their stuff.
Dude, one of those things gets out. You think rabbits replicate quickly. You ain't seen nothing yet with roaches. And here, that's not, so here it's funny. One of the cities I do business in, we never had a roach or a rat problem ever in the 400 years that the city is old. And in the last 10 years, ever since they knocked down two of the largest buildings in downtown, rats have been a problem downtown. So must have been literally, they had to pass laws about how you now have to knock down buildings and all the rat remediation that you have to do before you can knock down a building. It made a nightmare. And so, so I would just tell you that rats are fairly easy to get rid of. It's usually about a 30-day process. Cockroaches can be a problem. Bed bugs, I like the bake method, where they just literally jack up the heat to 125 degrees in the place and then they all die.
So I had the Australia problem where they brought in one type of animal and then it overbred. So they bring in another one that overbred. One of my properties, the back of the property abuts a car, not the car lot, junkyard, basically.
Okay.
Can't see it, massive fence. It's done professionally, right? So you can't tell it's there. But junkyards are home to giant rats. It's where they live, right? So no matter what we do in the building, there's kind of a rat problem. So we adopted 4 feral cats that live at the back of the property. And it's great, except those cats can have a war at 2 o'clock in the morning with each other that wakes up the whole neighborhood. They're more of a noise nuisance than the rats ever were, right? So
those rats are bastards, though. They do horrible damage. It's
Yeah.
the worst.
I have this one unit. I had to wrap so here's a tip. Dishwasher drain. So the water coming in, metal hose, not really a problem, but the drain hose is usually plastic.
Yes.
And rats seek sources of water. So you put out poison that dehydrates them so they don't smell, which makes them seek out sources of water. So taking care of the rats was making them go to the dishwasher units, dishwashers in each unit, and eat through the drain, no matter what I did. So I went to McClendon's, this wasn't at Home Depot or Lowe's. I had to find more of an electric themed hardware store. And I got metal tubing for electric to go to the panel box.
Conduit.
That flex conduit.
Oh, conduit, yeah.
And ran the drain through it from the machine to out
Yep.
and stopped them. They haven't chewed their way through that yet. So if you have a consistent recurring issue where no matter what you do, especially when you put the poison out, you're going to have the events because that makes them seek out the water.
Correct.
One fix and so I was out there like 2 times in a year. Not me, a handyman, right?
Challenging.
Right. But not since.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Technics, no offense. Any advice is good. Thank you both. You're very welcome. REI Stoners, can either of you guys explain how Zuber turned that cash flowing house into an alligator when he refinanced? Yeah. So real quickly is when you refinance, you are taking out a loan on the property and you could be taking out, you're usually taking out more of a loan and you could be taking it out at a higher rate. And so you might have a property that right now today with the rate that you have on it and with the amount of debt that you have on it, that cash flows. When you refinance, you get a higher loan on it and it could be at a higher rate. And thus you need to make more in revenue. His revenue didn't go up. And so all of a sudden he might have been able to do that cash out refi. The problem is that he turned something that was making money into something that every month lost money that he had to write a check on.
So looking at his portfolio, here's what Zuber did, and this is my opinion, right? I'm not gonna put words in his mouth. This is what I see from my perspective.
Yeah.
He created the alligator because he took out more money, which made the payment larger than the rent. But he used that money to buy 2 other properties. The cash flow from all 3 properties was cash flow positive. But he, being analytical and working in software and doing that kind of stuff where that asset has to cover itself, looks at the original one and says it's an alligator. Some people will take out a home equity line of credit, increasing the debt on the house that they live in. Right. So that there's more debt that makes your house more of an alligator than it was because you already live there. So it's already an alligator. Use that to buy an asset. And if that asset produces enough income to make both of the transactions cash flow positive, we suggest to do that. He doesn't want to do it because he looks at that one asset by itself. It was a rental and it became an alligator, even though aggregate was cash flow positive.
Sure.
So what's your perspective? That'll tell you what to do. Mike, I've never touched equity, and I don't create debt on an existing asset. I haven't done HELOC, refi, sold to 1031, none of that. But I would look at the entire portfolio and see what does this money move do on everything. So
Agreed. Hold on one second. I have to send
Evolve
this.
Properties says to
Yep.
like the button, which you have to close live chat, hit like, open live chat again. So thank you for
Yes.
everybody who does that.
Thank you. Maryland Jakir. So I'm looking for a 500K home in Woodbridge, Virginia. Any suggestion when I can start looking for property, when I can get a better deal, please suggest. So I would tell you, if you're looking in a specific area, just start charting it yourself. This is where you want to look every single day so you can start to really get a feel for the market so you know what costs are. I think at the end of the day, no one knows exactly when you should buy, and any channel telling you wait, don't know you, don't know your situation, don't know the money that you have, don't know what you have to put down, don't know what your alternative is to buying. There's too many variables there for me to suggest. All I can tell you is, if you're doing the work on a daily basis, looking at what's going on in your market on the daily, you'll see when the right opportunity is to buy. Because at the end of the day, you might be in a market that if it goes down 10%, all the people on the sidelines jump in and buy what's there. You might be in a low inventory market. Dion.
So Maryland, anybody
Urgent here.
who's telling you to buy now is an idiot. Anybody who's telling you to wait to buy is an idiot. Anybody who's telling you, here's how you time the market. You look for interest rates to do this. You look for prices to do this. You look for anything if anything like that, they're stupid. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to us if that's what we were saying. If we were saying you better buy now because something's going to change, or don't buy now because something's going to change, we'd be stupid. There's only two things that can tell you when to buy your property, right? It's not the market. It's not somebody on YouTube. It's not interest rates. It's not prices. It's none of that. The first thing, the most important thing, are you ready?
Yeah.
In your life? Do you have mental stability currently? Are you dealing with birth in the family, death in the family, change of jobs and location, change of careers, which can mess up lending? Like all of these things that could be happening in your life that might tell you, not because of the market, but because of me, I need to take a pause. So are you ready? That's the first thing. And so even if you found the second thing, don't do it unless you have the first thing. And the second thing is, once you know you're ready, second is, did you find the great deal? And Matt nailed it. Do the work, learn average in your market, figure out most of the deals that you look at, they're going to lose money, but a percentage of them will make some money. What is the average yield? Is it 4%, 7%, 8%? Try to beat that. Get a percent or two above what you can find on most of the cash flowing deals. So those are the two things you need to look at. Don't look at, it gets more busy in the spring. There'll be more inventory and a ton more demand. So that shifts at the same time. Don't think, well, I better buy now because demand comes back in the spring. Don't be in a rush. Are you ready? And can you find the deal? So do the work so you can identify the deal. And it's basically a form of dollar cost averaging. With stocks, there's two criteria. You pick a set amount of money on a determined timeline. So you're going to consistently every day invest $50, or once a week invest a set amount of dollars, or every month into so much. So that's consistent. So when stocks are going up, you buy less. When they're coming down, you buy more. Totally makes sense and people understand it. But when it comes to real estate, so because people will watch videos that talk about a crash coming, or they talk about prices going up, or next year will be the best year, or some way to time it, everybody thinks, oh, it's totally fine. Don't time stocks. That would be bad. But if you can time real estate, go for it. There's two criteria with dollar cost averaging and with stocks, and there's two criteria with real estate. Are you ready? Did you find a great deal?
Yep, I agree with that. And if it's your own personal home, you just have to count what the contrary is, right? The thing that all the crash bros miss is they're like, wait, don't buy. And then it's like, dude, I'm paying my rent since I lived here went from 2,200 to 2,600 to $3,000. And now what? This is what happens when you listen to the crash bros the last 2 years, is they were dead freaking wrong. And so that's where you really have to understand your market, whether it's for an investment or for your own personal home. What is the cost? Your rent isn't a taxable, isn't something that's a tax write-off. Your home is. There's a million benefits to owning a home versus renting. So it's a whole different set of criteria when it comes to buying your own personal home. But to my original point, doing that homework, and then to Dion's follow-up point, which is really just understanding, are you actually ready? Are your finances ready to do this thing? Let's see. So thank you, Maryland Jakir, very much for the question. I appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. John Williams, in 2008, the crash made me a landlord because I couldn't sell my first home. Yep. This year, there will be a ton of new landlords that can't move up, creating a whole generation of landlords. I 1000% agree. And they're going to have to get their place rented out. They're going to have to find a bank that's willing to count that towards their income. They're going to have the money for their next down payment for their next house. And yeah, I think there's going to be a large share of the market that's going to say, I'm never going to sell, because this is the first time in history that not only has your house been an asset, but the debt on your house has been an asset. First time ever that I can see. Dividend Dave. Hello, Dividend Dave. Fantastic Christmas song, by the way. That was wonderful. I was cracking up. Financial firefighter, REI Stoners. He probably did cash out refi. Yep. Pulled the equity. Yep. Payment change. Exactly. Gypsy Tree. Good to have you, Gypsy Tree. Inventory sucks in my buy box. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. But I don't understand. The market's crashing everywhere. So how could that be the case? I'm not mocking you. I'm mocking the cash bros.
So Gypsy Tree, my brother also invests in Southern California. And I hear people often say, I can't invest because I'm in New York. It's too expensive. I can't invest because I'm in Seattle. It's too expensive. I can't invest because I'm in the Bay Area, right? Zuber's in the Bay Area-ish.
Yes.
So he went 2.5 hours away. My brother invests in Southern California, but not LA County. Look up at Kern County, Bakersfield, Taft, Tehachapi, Roseman, Mojave. Cash flowing properties are out there. My niece lives in Fraser Park, so paid $200,000 for a house that would rent easily for $2,000 a month. So it hits the 1% rule. Not one of my properties has come close to the 1% rule. Your area, draw a circle around it and keep going up until you hit that edge where prices and rents start to make sense. Don't get tunnel vision on being where you're at. Like Millennial Mike has to work in Seattle. So can you buy a cash flowing property in Seattle making what he makes? Probably not. You can house hack just outside of Seattle and then you can invest at a distance. But I'm almost in the same area and all of my properties are right here, just south of Seattle in Tacoma. So I got outside of King County where people say, I live in Seattle, I can't invest here. Well, it's less than an hour away. And all of my properties, they weren't the 1% rule, but they were all better than a 10% cash on cash return the first year. They're all over 20% now. So draw your circle out a little bit further and see what you find.
All-nighter hider. I love that we can get into high-level conversations on complex topics and then shift to super useful general info in the same few minutes. We certainly try. Rob, how do I winterize palm trees? It's so cold, must be 60 degrees. Hey, Rob, just know that if China ever attacks us, you're first. They're going to go right after you guys first.
So I've never made this meme because the timing would be wrong with Florida. But there's the meme that goes around with Florida where it shows this beautiful sunny thing and it says, here's the summer, and then it's a beautiful summer thing, and here's the winter, right? And it's like, everyone says Florida's great. I've never seen the meme of here's Cape Coral Thursday. Here's this garbled mess of after the hurricane trashed it on Friday. Like, that's not going to happen here.
I think Rob's in San Diego though. So he does have something that's real, but like I said, we get attacked. You're getting hit first because you have a nice sub situation going on down there. Just saying, FYI, and lots of big cruise ships.
And of the 10 places people were moving out of, Los Angeles was in the top 10. Of the 10 places people were moving to, San Diego was in the top 10. So enjoy all of those people from Los Angeles that you now live next to.
Better yet, I hope it's a bunch of New Yorkers. Because a lot of them came to New Hampshire. It's a different world. And yes, I have New Yorkers that are friends. That's why I tease them, because they watch. Let's see. So yeah, go winterize that palm tree, Rob. Aloha from Hawaii, financial firefighters. Yes, that was a good learning experience for me. Invest in Pittsburgh from Hawaii and property manage. Said we need to winterize. I was like, WTF is that? Yeah, totally. So here's the thing. Oh shit, I'm a landlord. Now what? That's the purpose of the course. People don't understand all that's entailed in being a landlord. I literally felt like when I was at the closing table after my first deal, man, I was high-fiving myself. I mean, I was asking the closing agent to give me a good old slap on the back. Like, I was so pumped. I was like, I finally own a property. And then I was like, oh shit. I don't know how to do leases. I don't know who I'm going to call. I don't know the things that are specific in this market. I mean, literally, I was just like, rampant with anxiety because I was like, there's about 1,000 things I don't know. That's the whole purpose of this course, is it's taking people that are making that plunge or have recently made that plunge. Don't go through the next 5 to 10 years building processes and systems yourself. I have them. I built them. That's what the course is for. So you can know and how to avoid major fixes. You can see when something's actually on its way out and you can get it fixed now, as opposed to wait for this big, huge, massive expense. How to actually in-source property management. It's one of the things that Dion sort of does, but we kind of add on to that because in the last year with my daughter being sick, I had to know how I could manage construction projects without going on site, how I could manage my tenants without going on site. So it's all of these things. I might as well have been 2,000, 5,000, 7,000 miles away because I couldn't get to it. I couldn't go on site. I was quarantined for a year. So that's where I built a lot of these processes and systems that help me remote manage the same as close manage. I've said something that offended Dion, but I'm okay with it. I know he'll come back. John Williams, victory by 1,000 laps. Ah, see, he finally got hot. I knew it. Oh yeah. Story time with Uncle Dion. John Williams, victory by 1,000 laps. Yeah, totally agree. Gypsy Tree, T-bills versus cap rates. Will institutional investors dump for less headaches of T-bills? So Gypsy Tree, I think that's a great question. I don't think so. And here's why. Houses aren't liquid, number one. Number two is they not only own the underlying asset, but they're also getting a return on the asset. So they have their cost model built in. And number three is most of these houses that get purchased through some sort of a fund. That money's been put into the fund for that purpose. That money isn't put into the fund to say, this is our 7% return fund. It gets put into a fund that says, this is our single family home investment fund. There is a $110 billion fund in Wall Street right now that is meant to be buying 247,000 homes or 244,000 homes at the current median home price. That's to give you an example. They could go in and they can completely change different markets by where they decide that they want to invest, because they're not going to do that in all 400 markets all over the country. They're going to pick probably 20 to 50 markets that they're going to go into. So while they might change their strategy and stop buying and maybe buy some T-bills, they're not going to swap their houses for T-bills. And again, at the end of the day, $10,000 challenge I've put out there for Nick Gurley, Reventure Consulting. I will bet you $10,000 and you can keep my 10 grand or we can have it go to charity. I don't care. You put up the same and you buy your T-bills and I will buy a rental property within 30 days. We'll figure out exactly what those rules are, but I'll buy a property within 30 days and I will show you a far greater return than your T-bills. And yeah, go ahead, Dion.
Here's the brilliance of Gypsy Tree's question.
Yeah.
Great question, worded really well.
I totally agree.
I'm assuming, so I don't want to do that. Anytime you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and umption. But I'm thinking you watched Reventure's talk where he talked about cap rates compressing so people might move to T-bills, which is stupid. And here's why. Because it points out that Nick has no idea how real estate works. He's talking about single family and we go up to 4 units. So 4 units or less. Cap rates don't apply. They're not a part of the equation. They can't use them. They don't make any sense. They don't mean anything to any investor with 4 units or less on a property. So you can have 100 and something units, but if there are 4 units or less, you've never used a cap rate for anything. So it means nothing. But you followed up with the part of the question that makes sense. So had Nick said this, we probably wouldn't be attacking him so much for costing people hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Will they dump real estate for less headaches of T-bills? Yes, being a property owner and renting it out to people is not for everybody. If you can't handle the stress of talking to a property manager about an issue with your tenant, you should not own real estate, right? So some of us don't even want the property manager in the way. We want to deal with the stress ourselves because it's easier, right? So there are people who will try real estate. They'll make the biggest mistake that landlords have ever made, and that's not raising the rents, keeping them current. So they're actually getting a good yield, because to say you can get a 4% T-bill or 4% yield on property, so the T-bill is less headache, is not counting for possible appreciation, principal pay down, setting a depreciation schedule where you can do something like be a real estate professional and write off tens of thousands of dollars in tax loss against your W-2 work.
Yep.
Like all of the benefits of real estate, to look at the numbers of you're going to get 4% from T-bills, which is then taxed because it's income, or and this was none of us are getting 4% yields on a rental property. Like you might get that first year, but third, fourth year, they're 20, 30% because rents continue to go up. Mortgages for the most part stay the same, except for maybe taxes and insurance, but that doesn't change very much. Like my insurance on one of my properties doubled last year, doubled. It's now $56 a month. Like
Yeah.
how much of an impact is that going to have that it went up to that much? So it's a great question. There are some people who are going to leave real estate to get rid of the headaches because they weren't fit for real estate in the first place. But no landlord is going to look at my 4% yielding property versus my 4% in 10% in T-bills. And they're going to go, I'm going to sell this property, get a T-bill, because the benefit from appreciation, pay down, depreciation, and write-offs is far superior with even a lower return than what T-bills will be because they're taxed and they're not consistent.
That's right.
Imagine if you purchased a rental right now in 2008, peak of the market. It would suck, right? It'd be a third of the price you'd pay now. It'd be awesome to have that. And we're this many years in the future. Look at what's happened to rents. If you bought a T-bill in 2008, in 2009, you had another decision to make.
Yeah.
In 2010, you had another decision to make. Every single year, that's not like you're buying a 30-year treasury bond, right? That's not what people are talking about. So it was a good question. I could see that if it came from Reventure, yes, comparing cap rates to anything that we're doing with residential real estate, tells me he shouldn't be giving advice on real estate because he doesn't understand how it works. I don't give stock advice. I don't tell you whether T-bills are good or bad. I don't know anything about the asset class. I know that real estate is consistently the largest asset class of making millionaires consistently.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, Dion just kind of glazed over a little bit. He uses cap rates because that's what he was trained in. The guy's a Luddite. He doesn't know anything he's talking about when it comes to residential real estate. He was trained in commercial real estate. He worked for a commercial firm that, quite frankly, was really small. They were a small commercial firm. They were in Boston. I know a decent amount about this guy because anybody that I follow, I do research on. I in the very beginning, I started watching his stuff and then I did some research on him and I was like, the guy is completely jaded, doesn't know what he's talking about, can't interpret a chart for anything. And he was an underwriter. He was an underwriter. Do you guys know of any underwriters that you would invite to a party? I don't. They're usually the ones that kill our deals because of some obscure fact. Yeah. This guy he was the last guy on the wedgie team.
I wonder if it's something in that industry because
It is.
We've been friends for decades and he is waiting to buy his first rental until interest rates come down. And he was an underwriter for years. Not understanding the industry means you probably worked. It's kind of like everybody goes, well, I want to become an investor. Let me go talk to my friend who's a realtor. Is the realtor an investor?
Yeah.
Now you've got my attention. But is over 90% of realtors never own a rental property? That's not your source of investing information.
Yep. Nope. Agreed entirely. Let's see. All-nighter. Roldan, Mark, and then you put a link in there. Don't forget the Pirate Flask. Chesla, howdy, y'all. Hi, Chesla. Just classing up the live stream as we speak. Gypsy Tree, NH ranked the most free state in USA. It did. And we're really proud of that, by the way. In all honesty, when I had the chance to pick between Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine, look at where Mass and Maine are on that same list. I think they're bottom 10, if not their bottom third, I believe. But New Hampshire, our property taxes are high. We don't have a sales tax and we don't have an income tax. Now, you might say, well, then why would owning real estate there be smart if the property taxes are so high? Here's why it's smart. Because the state is aligned with me getting paid. Because if I don't get paid my rent, I can't pay my property taxes. If I can't pay my property taxes, the state goes insolvent. The state can't have that happen. So we are a very pro-landlord state, not a pro-tenant state. So they look at it and say, if the tenant's not paying, they gotta go. And so that's why even a long process for us, I just did the one that was 5 months. But as they appealed through the process, they had to pay their rent every month through the process. The only way that they were allowed to continue their appeal was if they were paying their rent. So even though she did lose, even though she got out, even though it took 5 months, guess what? I still got paid $3,000. I still made $3,000 in that time that she was contesting the eviction because they only allow you to continue the appeal if you're paying. How awesome is that, Dion?
Sometimes it's all about mindset, especially when it comes to high taxes. Kind of like Zuber creating an alligator, but then looking at the whole portfolio, realizing
Sure.
hitting increased cash flow across the board, right? It's just mindset. I've never paid a penny in taxes when it comes to real estate.
Tell people how.
Rental income, I've profited hundreds of thousands.
Mhm,
Depreciation and write-offs, so I've never paid a penny of that.
mhm.
My tenants
Yes.
pay a crap ton of property taxes because if property taxes go up, guess what happens to rent? So where do you think the money for property taxes is coming from? So that's how I look at taxes. It's a factor, kind of like interest rates. You don't buy based on interest rates going up or down. You look at interest rates going up or down, compare it to the price, the yield, the stability of the market, the number of economic drivers, all of the things that go into it. And then one little tiny aspect of that is interest rates. And another tiny little aspect of that is taxes. So
Awesome. Sorry, guys. I have somebody in the field doing an inspection, a housing inspection as we speak. Interesting that they cited that. Okay. I got flagged for no cover on the heater in the bathroom, like I took it off. Unreal. It's like, why? REI Stoners, aloha firefighter. Pallavi, good morning. Good to have you. Let's see. Afro Capitalist. Tenant only paid half the rent in December. Okay. PM said that that is normal during the holiday. Fire them. Not comfortable with that. I agree with you. Would you begin the eviction process? Dion?
absolutely. Two reasons. First, you fire the property management, and you don't make anything normal like you not getting paid, because that person is still paying their cell phone, they're still paying
Yeah.
their car, they're still paying for their
Yeah.
fuel. They just put you on the bottom of the list.
Yes.
And you immediately start the eviction process as a favor to the tenant. There is a lot of so here in our state, a friend of mine is actually going through an eviction now. So I went on, it was like the 18th or something, so just before the holidays, yay, and served eviction papers to help the tenant, because
Yeah.
part of the eviction paper process is going with the service. Here's the forms of rent assistance you can get that you don't qualify for until you're served with these eviction papers. So as soon as you serve the tenant with the papers, then they can go out to the community, the county, the resources that exist in your state and say, if somebody's starting the eviction process, I now qualify for more assistance. And if you wait, you're not running it like a business.
Agreed. Well said. Any tips, Jordan Harmon, any tips for investing in an expensive, easy for me to say, market? Not a lot of duplexes or small multi in Utah.
I have two things of advice. First, well, I guess three. When you're looking at an expensive market, draw circles out. I talked about this a little bit earlier, from where you're at out to where you'll see an equilibrium between prices and rents, where it starts to make sense. And if you're in the perfect market, that might be 1,000 miles away, so that's not going to work. Second, the more expensive the market you live in, the more important house hacking becomes. If you can save $300 a month rent because the town, that's the rent where you're at, that's not really helping you much. But if you can save $3,000 a month in rent, now you're talking some numbers that really add up quick. Like Millennial Mike, house hacking near Seattle, not in Seattle, but near Seattle, to save thousands of dollars a month, but investing at a distance. So you might look at a strategy like that. I wouldn't dismiss house hacking because it's going to be more impactful because you're in an expensive area. You might look at investing at a distance, but every time I hear somebody say there's not a lot of small multifamily in my area, you said Utah, right?
Yeah.
How are you looking? Because if you're looking on Redfin and Zillow, I have never seen any of my deals show up on those platforms until a few months after I've closed, and they show up as pending. So that is not a way to find small multifamily. It's going to be on the MLS. It's going to be on and off in a few hours. So you want multiple searches from multiple agents on the MLS sending you things, and you might be right. There might not be a lot of small multifamily in the area. So the third thing, add the missing asset class, the one that most investors miss. But you have to figure out what terms are being used in your area. And originally we do that by using all of them. Home buyers don't want to buy a house with an ADU because they're not looking to have a tenant. And investors do what we do when we look for small multifamily. An agent doesn't list a house with an ADU under small multifamily. They list it under single family house. So you have to actually have your search include all of the words that can find that house with ADU. And it could be ADU, DADU, JADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house, like anything that colloquialism located to your area is how they're referring to it, to look for those, because you get single family lending, even though it's more than one unit. You get the 3% down conventional if it's your first, 5% down conventional if it's not your first, and first meaning you haven't owned one in 3 years. FHA would still work. You can own or occupy. You get the best interest rate, because normally with my loans being small multifamily, I get 2 bump ups in my interest rate. The first one is it's small multifamily. So from single family to small multifamily, you go up about a 0.5 point. And then on the ones I house hacked, it stayed there. I've only house hacked twice. So the ones I purchased where I'm not house hacking, it went up another 0.5 point. So I'm a point above what everybody else was getting. Last year when everybody was getting 3%, I bought a duplex at 4%. So it was a point higher. That's my suggestion. Consider house hacking, put it at the forefront. And second, look at ADUs. And a lot of people think of an ADU as what you can build. And when we look at ADUs, we go, I'm going to build, it can only be so many square feet. But I've seen ADUs here in Washington, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, 4-bedroom, 4-bath on one property, both 2,000 square feet. Like it was a deal I was competing for, but they were built before ADU laws became what they were. I have a house with an ADU right now that is a full 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, is one I actually own. And the 80, I don't know which one's the ADU, but the other side is a duplex, 2-bedroom, 1-bath each side on one property. So it's really a triplex that's a house with an ADU. So I wouldn't have found that because it wasn't listed as small multifamily. It was listed as house with an ADU. So I was looking for single family when I found my triplex. So make sure you add that to your search.
Agreed. James J., thank you very much for the super chat. Great content, gentlemen. Thanks for doing these. Always happy to. You also had a couple questions I want to cover. So in your experience, what mortgage companies have given the most favorable rate with buy down for a non-owner occ loan? Thanks. But then you had a follow up to that. Oh no, that was just a hider. Not just a hider, but to hider. I can tell you that for me, the ones that typically have the lowest rate are the ones that require the most paperwork. And that's usually going to be a mortgage broker that actually works with 10 to 15 different banks. You give him or her your criteria, i.e. who you are, your profile, and then he knows these are the right people for this. These are the people that I need to go shop this loan with. I personally like small local banks because they're in the community, of the community, for the community. So everything that they're doing is a pure investment loan. If on the usually on the commercial side with those things, they want to work with landlords. They want to be part of the community. They want to provide housing. They actually get bank credits from the federal government when you show that you're renting out affordable housing or you're doing something through the housing or Section 8 programs. They actually get credits for that. So they are more apt to sign you up as a lender that's doing investment properties as well. So I would go mortgage broker, but I would also be talking to small local banks. Give them your criteria, your profile, and some of them might say flat out, no, not for us. Others might say, yeah, this is the type of loan we'd love to do. Dion?
Here's my order of operations when it comes to lending. And I do this every time. It's going to sound like a lot. It takes way longer to explain it, like 2 or 3 minutes, than it actually takes to do it. Doing it takes about 4 emails. I start with a large lending institution like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or Chase, because their lending is the most standardized. So once you get a response from them that says you're qualified to a certain amount, or this is our interest rate, most other lenders won't even run your credit. They will give you a letter saying we can compete with that as long as everything that you're telling us checks out. So that's the first step. When they run your credit to get qualified, you get a 30-day window for all the other lenders to run their credit if they want to without having an additional hit to your credit score. So you want to shop lenders. So that's the first step. My first few mortgages, Wells Fargo won against brokers, against local credit unions, against Fairway Mortgage. So 2 mortgages through them. But you take, and my person at Wells Fargo taught me this. Took the paperwork from them in writing to a broker, to a credit union. I've never done with credit unions because they in my area sucked. And I went to Fairway Mortgage and I said, here's what Wells Fargo is offering. Can you beat it? Whoever can beat it is who I'm going to go with. So they give me their in writing offer of that my buy down rate is less, and that's what they can compete with sometimes, not just rate. My rate is better, whatever is going to be the difference, but then have honor. Take that offer back to the original lender and give them a chance to keep your business, because my person there said, I can't go to my boss and say, I really like Dion, can we give him a better rate? But if you give me something in writing from another lender, I could say, this is what we need to beat to keep his business. So the first two, they beat it. Third one, Fairway was able to beat them. Wells Fargo couldn't compete. So everyone since then, and I've reversed it, do the same thing. Wells Fargo still looks at it and sees what they can beat, gone back. So whether I was using a broker, credit union, local lender, big bank, little bank, doesn't matter. It sounds like a lot, but you get one, you show it to three others, you let any of them, if they beat it, so that might be the end of it. That might be, okay, nobody beat my first one, I'm done. So you've sent 3 or 4 emails and you're done. If somebody does beat it, you go back to the original lender. So now you've sent maybe 5 emails total. People will do this for contractors on a $5,000 deck build. They'll talk to contractors, get quotes, compare reviews, but you're going to make a 30-year commitment for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most people will say, oh, 5 emails is way too much work for me.
Yeah.
Every single time I still do it. And my lenders know. They know I'm going to compete rates.
Yeah.
And they don't care, because if they have the best product, then they'll compete. And if they don't, if they're unwilling to compete, then they know their product is crap.
Yep, agreed. And let's face it, mortgages are commodities. When it comes to, like, there's 1,000 people out there that offer them. So give me your best price. Well, we really pride ourselves in service. All right. Chester Williams. Good afternoon, Matt and Dion. Good afternoon, Chester. All-nighter. Let's see. Hi, Chester. I heard Woodbridge, Virginia. Yes, someone else in the DMV. Yes, sir. Tiffany AG, Alexandria, Virginia here, still new to the area. Good to have you, Tiffany. I appreciate you coming and hanging out on the live stream, talking real estate. Let's see. Josh Burdick, don't crash me, bro. I know, right? Afro Capitalist, do not accept anything less than the month's full rent. Thank you, Chester. Exactly. Roldan Crespo, and those 4, go ahead.
Note on that. So if you collect rents with Venmo, Apple Pay, Cash App, Zelle, ACH, or anything like that, you can't stop a tenant from making a partial payment, right? So you send an email, because emails are admissible in court, saying, you have sent this amount of money, your total amount owed was this amount is being held in an account. I have not received it. It is a partial payment of your rent, which has not been paid. So that's from my attorney, like word for word. You need to send an email saying, because you can receive partial payments. It doesn't restart the eviction process like when you take a check and deposit it. That went into your account. You hold it in that one account so that you can go to court saying, yes, they tried to pay, but I'm holding it here because I'm not accepting anything less than a full payment.
So the other thing that you can add too is, and this is what my attorney, one of my 9 attorneys, can't believe I have more attorneys than I have agents now. But one of my attorneys actually said, I literally call out if I've received it that way. Yes, exactly what Dion said. But I also add, because the core of what you need is what Dion said, but I also add, this does not stop the eviction in process, period. That way there's nothing on their side where they're like, well, I paid part of it. Yep. Here's your rent. Here's what you paid. This is what's still due. This money received is not, or this money that you've paid is not stopping the eviction process in currently happening. That's exactly what I put in my emails back to them. And that's really important. Let's see. Roldan Crespo, and those forced landlords, they get burned out, very likely would be motivated sellers for me to go after with solutions. Absolutely. All-nighter. I plan on investing here in San Diego when I have the knowledge and portfolio to support it. Makes sense. Glover at Gypsy Tree. I live in the Bay Area and invest in Chicago for those same reasons. Holy crap. You took 2 of like the markets that scare the crap out of me. I'd love to know, Glover, if you've ever done an eviction before in Chicago. I've heard from a couple friends it was a nightmare. All-nighter. I have felt the subs creating phantom wake as I fish for my kayak in San Diego Bay. It's enough to open the eyes a bit wider. Nice. Matthew Paris, hello. Rob, you live near UCSD and the Chinese have already invaded. LOL. All-nighter. Rob, I know the area. You ain't lying. Yeah, I don't know the area in San Diego at all. I've only been in the airport for a few hours. All-nighter, more like Revulture Consulting. That's pretty funny. Laura Samaniego, not the entire state of Florida was devastated. Yep, the entire city of Cape Coral was not devastated either. I was at the beach yesterday, East Coast. They were not affected. That's awesome. All
My
nighter.
friends who moved to Cape Coral, I think, are moving out because they moved there and everyone told them, well, look at the layout of the land. We hardly ever get here. They've been hit twice since they've been there.
Oh my goodness, that's
So.
brutal. That's brutal. Let's see. Oh, I just might move my chat. Okay, here we go. T-bills are unitaskers. At one has the capital to have an allocation to them. Then that one is successful. Totally agree. James J. Oh, no, we already answered that question. Daniel Fiore. Hey, Daniel, good to have you here. There are also multiple ways to increase the value of your real estate investment versus absolutely nothing you can do to increase the return on a T-bill. True. And
Really?
also the purchase on a T-bill is not, it can't be leveraged like you can with buying a house, Dion.
And really hard to house hack a T-bill.
It's very hard. I've tried staying under that paper creation or the digital creation thereof, and I've not been successful. Hardwood Bear, UE turned me on to you guys like a month ago, and you've quickly become some of my favorite content. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Hardwood. We appreciate that. We love Simon. I'm excited for him because I think he's going to make an amazing landlord, because when he just learns the housing piece of it, when he's ready to do that, the fix it side is going to be super easy for him. So he's going to see all that he's going to be able to do. It's going to be absolutely awesome.
I'm looking forward to interacting with him to try to help him be a little more lazy and tell him, look, your knowledge, your ability to do all this is going to, his ability to do all those things is going to make him really good at knowing if his handyman or contractor is giving him a good deal. He doesn't have to do it all himself.
Simon, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't lose the hustle, bro. Don't lose the hustle. James J, no problem, Hyder. Always happy to support these guys and see you all friendly people in the super chat. Good to have you here. We have great community. Thank you. Terry Flood, businesses don't pay taxes, customers do. Preach it, Terry. Daniel Fiore, I see a group of hippies buy up a block in North Oakland and completely transform the area. Block parties, weekly crop swap, basically added some pride of ownership. Now they have a Whole Foods. Oh, we have one property, and despite my warning, my wife let my brother-in-law move in. Oh yeah. Some lesson are best learned the hard way. Now we are ready to move him out. His lease is up next month. Can we just tell him we are not interested in re-signing with him, or is there a process we have to go with? You can
have to
give
know
him
your local laws.
Yeah, and that's the biggest issue, is that the rules are different in every single county, in every single town. There are federal laws for landlording, then there are state laws, then there are county laws, and then there are city or municipality laws. You have to know what those laws are in your municipality. So one of my best friends, a little bit of a share time, and it might be an overshare, but I'm with Dion, so that's okay. He's used to those.
Blame it on the water.
That
makes you choke.
Yeah. So one of my best friends has a super successful business, wants to start deploying capital into real estate. He sent me an MLS link. I wrote him back and I go, and here's the thing. I love him like a brother. I'm absolutely going to help him. But I've already told him, I was like, don't send me a link. You gotta know how to qualify a deal. So the big piece that we talk about, one of the big pieces that we talk about in Oh Shit, I'm a Landlord Now What, is I actually show you guys how to interact with attorneys to be able to A, pick your attorney, and two, after picking your attorney, making sure that you're on the same page with what your strategies are. Because if your strategy is flouting a law, or if it's doing something that's against the law in your area, you need to know that now, not a year or 2 years later after you did it, and then you get into a trouble and then you have to fix it. That's why that one problem could cost you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. You know, so most people don't know this, but in the Northeast, so we are famous because we have old homes. If you guys have watched any of my content, you know that I work on stuff that could be 160 years old. A lot of times people will just, over the years, they will sometimes create an apartment on a third floor. They create that apartment, they have somebody move in, all good. That person's moved in, they're living in the apartment, they love their life. Here's the challenge. If that wasn't a legal apartment and you ever have to file suit against them to get them evicted, if that wasn't a legal apartment, you can be on the hook to return all of their rent that they've paid you. That's how much it can bite. Those are the types of things we make sure we're helping people set up in Oh Shit, I'm a Landlord Now What, so you guys can know about these types of things that can happen. And that's all how you talk within your network, who you end up with it as your primary attorney. It is a critical decision because you don't want to be calling the first time you have a problem. You want to already have a relationship. So we go into depth in what that looks like. Dion?
So 2 things, Hardwood, 3 things. Thank you for being here. That's the first one.
Yes.
But it seems like you made the mistake most of us do. You said you have one property and your spouse talked you into letting your brother-in-law move in. So when you have one property, I'm guessing you're probably just starting out, right? You probably haven't had this property for 20 years. You probably just started as a rental. When I first started renting, here was my thought process. There's no way I could trust a stranger. Yeah. I need to rent to a friend because I'm so new. I want to rent to somebody I can trust, right? It's the dumbest thing we can do. Friends and family will take advantage of you because currently when you first start, most of us, almost all of us, but most of us don't have a backbone. We don't have our systems in place. We don't have a lease that we're going to stick to. We don't have like our clear boundaries with our tenants. So I messed up so bad that first year. I tried to give my house away. Luckily, I was underwater. And like some of the people were talking earlier, I became a forced landlord because I couldn't give the house away. Worked out great once I finally educated myself. So that's what you're doing now. Educate yourself. That's a great step. So now that you're educating yourself, you would think, okay, going forward, if the brother-in-law gets out, you're going to have a lease, you're going to screen tenants, you're going to have criteria, no evictions, good credit score, good income, whatever matters to you. You're going to get a tenant in there, and they're going to say, look, I don't know you, so here's the lease. Here's what we agree to. I will do these things, and you will do these things, and if not, we end up in court. And it works so much better with strangers than it does with people you know. Once you have your systems in place, I rent to a nephew, I rent to friends, but I have these systems in place where it's a lease, it's a business thing, right? So that's the first thing. Learn to run it like a business. And if you do move, but the second thing, the most important thing to me, Matt talked about your attorney being on the same page. What page is your spouse on? It's a brother-in-law, right? So somehow maybe kind of knows your spouse in some relationship angle there, depending on how the marriage thing worked to make it a brother-in-law. Does she want him out? Are you going to create marital strife by pressing the issue? Is another option to educate the brother-in-law, to have a stronger lease, to put a lease in place and say, look, I've learned these things about being a property owner. If you want to continue to live here, here's the things you have to do, or we're going to go through an eviction like we would with anybody else. That might be another path. And don't take marriage advice from me because I've had 2 that didn't work. So I'm not the guy to get the advice from. I know that they might have worked better had I had thoughts like that because it takes 2 people to mess up a relationship. What page is she on? If she wants him out, and you want him out, then it comes down to what are your local laws? Are you going to do a renovation? In some areas, that means you need to give a certain number of days of notice. In my area, it's 60 days. If you're going to move into owner occupied, you have to give 90 days notice. A non-lease renewal changed in a lot of areas after 2020. So if you Google something, look at the date and timestamp of the website you're looking at to see if it reflects new legislation, because a lot of those said you can't not renew leases in some areas. So first, make sure you and your spouse are thinking the same way. And if she has a different opinion, that doesn't mean you have an argument and you have one side, she has one side. You figure out, is there a compromise? Because that's when both sides lose something. Is it maybe educating your tenant, which I've done. I've purchased properties that had an existing tenant in place where they were a nightmare. Every little problem was a phone call, and I had to go and have a couple of Dion talks with them and educate the tenant, who has since been a great tenant, still there, right? So you have a few different options.
Love it. Yep. All that stuff. Daniel Fiore, appreciate the comic relief. I'm that brother-in-law. Dave, is that you? That's well done. Well done. Jordan Harmon, thanks so much. You guys are the best. Dion's Bigger Pockets episode was the one I sent to my wife to help her realize we could do this. That's awesome. Chester Williams, thanks for deleting the porn. We don't need it anymore. And Hyder got some, and Crespo got some. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, guys. Amanda St. J. Hey, Amanda, good to have you. Very helpful. Thanks, guys. James J., you're welcome. Michelle Meyer, we're still going, Michelle. Good to have you.
And if you go back afterwards, you can listen on to it double speed, and we sound like chipmunks.
It's true. I sound like even more of a chipmunk. Stephen, hello, Stephen. We sent a search party out for you, Michelle. They missed it too. That's true. Samoan Island Curl. Very cool to have you here. Appreciate you coming and hanging out. You're very welcome. Thank you both. Appreciate all the smiley faces. Welcome to the channel. Come hang out with us anytime. Josh Burdick found a big lot with a house in front and a double wide in back. Okay, I'm hesitant because MH mobile homes lose value, but it can still bring in decent rents. Thoughts? So here's what I would tell you. I actually acquired a property just like that. What I found was the insurance was expensive compared to my other single family homes. The mobile home you can't get financed on. So it's really all about the debt carrying on the front one, making sure that the mobile home is there legally. I talked to my town or the town. This was my first deal in that town. I've gone into 2 new towns this year. I did my first deal in 2 new towns after learning some more markets. And so what I would tell you is I would check with the town. I would also check with the bank that that's not going to be an issue. And then I would also check with insurance because sometimes they should grandfather it in. But again, town, bank, insurance, those are your biggest concerns. As far as the mobile home, as soon as it becomes unlivable, the cool thing is the town's approved it. They'll allow you to replace something in kind. In kind means exactly the same thing that's there. It also matters, is the mobile home truly a mobile home, i.e., is it on cement blocks and it's using the existing septic system, or is it still on the wheels? So those also differ sometimes with the town too. So I had all those conversations. I got insurance. It was a little bit more expensive than I wanted to pay, but I had to have insurance. I talked to the bank. The bank was completely fine with it. And then I talked to to the town and they said, yes. And I said, well, let's just say tree comes down, smashes this thing, blows it to obliterates it. What can I do? He said, we'll let you replace something in kind, which means exactly the same type of unit, size, all the same setbacks. We'll let you replace it. The good news for me is if that mobile home ever goes away, I can go buy another one. I can put it back in its place. And actually what's really cool about it is that rental is about $1,000 a month. It's a great rental. I mean, it's a 1 bedroom that I get $1,000 a month for. Beautiful landscape. You can walk to a lake from it. Like it was just a super unique property. So I'm super thrilled to have it. Dion?
I wouldn't hesitate at all. My brother retired at 50 with 10 rentals paid off. 7 of them are mobile homes. And a lot of it happens to do with the decade that you're in. There were times when it was hard to get lending. So go talk to a lender and find out what is currently going on. Mobile homes in my area right now are selling for the exact same as a stick built. $300,000 or $400,000 for a mobile home, and lending is happening on it just like regular. Insurance can be a little different. It's like 20% different. So while it's more, it's maybe a couple $100 a year at most. So it's not like it triples or anything. And my brother is a craftsman. When you go to the properties and you see the outside, you can see, okay, that's a mobile home. When you go in, you can't tell. It's rounded corners, vaulted ceilings, it's regular roofs. So I mean, your roof is on a 30-year cycle, just like a regular house is. So like Matt said, it comes down to the property.
Mm-hmm.
Is it permitted? Is it zoned? Is it is it strapped so your insurance will be okay? Is it still on the wheels? Most cities don't like mobile homes because they don't get the same amount of property taxes because it's not an improvement to the property. It's still a vehicle because it has registration. So you have to know if your city is okay with it and find out from, like Matt said, if it's destroyed, will they let you replace like with like, which most places will. The places I've talked to don't have a problem with it. So wouldn't be a deal stopper for me. What's the yield look like? Yes, 100 years from now might not be a great investment, but currently for the next, for the rest of our lives, it's going to be a good investment.
I want to absolutely dope slap this tenant. I got to tell, so this person's complaining that the place isn't warm enough. Okay, fine. A little bit fragile, but sure. Because I lived in that building for 5 years myself. And then I had tenants in there for 5 years. No one ever complained about the amount of heat. This guy complains about the heat. So I said, okay, let me see what I can do. I offer him a oil-based space heater. And I said, this way you can plug this in, you get warm, you're good. I don't feel comfortable with that. Okay, fine. I'll even go the extra level. I'll actually hire an electrician to put in a piece of baseboard for you. I said, let me see what I can do. So I've been working on it a week, hugging wives, kissing babies, promising my electrician, listen, please just take care of this for me. I really need you to take care of it. I've got a big contract coming for you. Will you please just squeeze me in? He's like, I will do it on Saturday. And I was like, I appreciate that. I send something to tenant says, as I read, the tenant literally says, good afternoon. Unfortunately, no one will be home in the house at that time. Are there any workarounds? 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 Are you joking? Workarounds? I'm already working around for you because you're chilly. I literally said to him, it may be 3 or 4 weeks before he's back, but it's your call. He's someone I've used for years. I've never had an issue. Is there a workaround? No one will be home at that time. All right. Now you get punched verbally because you're being a dope. Nope. That's when he's available. If you need someone there for that, it's up to you. So it's your call this Saturday, or wait another 3 or 4 weeks when you may or may not have someone home then either.
So here's where the self-management thing comes in. Matt just received the text.
Yes.
So he should not respond. He should wait 10 minutes. You should not make the tenant think that we're on his timeline. And the response is not, no, that's your only option. The response is, that's when he's available. If you are okay with waiting 3 weeks, that is your choice. It is not, are you stupid? You asked for this, right?
I said that to them.
I know. I'm not saying that you did. I'm letting everyone know. We have a visceral reaction. We are human. Tenant calls me and says, hey, can we replace all the downstairs windows with ones that open because it gets kind of hot in here? And I'm like, no. How about we put in a ceiling fan?
Exactly.
But you think for a few minutes before you respond, because the sarcasm will come out in text. Even a week later, you would look at the text and go, ooh, I sent that. I shouldn't have sent that.
See, that's where we differ. I'm okay with that. I think my people appreciate a saucy landlord. And again, I just said it may be because I think it's factual. He can read it as sarcasm, but I said it may be 3 or 4 weeks before he's back. So it's your call. He's someone I've used for years, never one issue.
I love that I'm 3 cups of water in and I had a more peaceful response than you did.
You don't have to deal with this absolute balloon knot.
There you go.
And this guy's brutal. He's been like, oh, sweet. Hey guys, 810 credit score. That's all I have to say. And I've got an 850, but this guy is brutal. Like I'm chilly. Okay, let me just jump out of the way to solve this problem for you. DMV. So let's see. RE3. Hey, good to have you, RE3. DMV dude here as well. Bethesda, Maryland, who's a Rockstar agent located in the DMV. Todd Sachs from Sachs Realty. He's pretty good. Smart guy. Mahid Gazelia. I hope I got that right, Mahid. I'm sorry if I didn't. Hi, Matt and Dion. Probably repeated your question. How do you guys protect your assets? Do you have an umbrella policy or LLC or something different? I'm just going to get underneath my desk real quick. You gotta come
I had to
back.
hide what my face did there for a second. This is a great question.
Great
Matt,
question.
I'll let you handle it. Or would you like me to handle it?
No, yeah, feel free.
Majid, that's a good question. It's one we actually see very common, and we kind of make jokes about it because I almost have a visceral reaction when I see the question, and it's not because the question is asked. It's a legitimate, great question. It's the responses from people who've never owned real estate, who have no idea how the system works, who say things that literally stop new investors from doing anything. If you want to start and someone says, well, you have to have an LLC to protect your assets, or maybe for the tax benefits, it doesn't give you either at all. If you're a sole proprietor, there are no tax benefits. The IRS in 1996 determined all sole member LLCs are called disregarded entities. So there's no tax benefit. Without an LLC, I get every single tax write-off that anybody with an LLC gets, except for the expense of creating and maintaining the LLC. So when it comes to asset protection, there are times it makes sense to have an LLC. If you have partners, the limited liability company is designed to limit you from someone else's mistakes. It doesn't separate your assets. When you are sued, you are sued. All of your LLCs are your assets. In the 2 counties that I invest, they are not pierced. They do not pierce the veil. They don't look at your finances and go, you commingled finances. Some people don't even know what that means. And then they go, so it's all you. They disregard them. They use the precedents of the 1996 IRS decision, and they say all single member LLCs are disregarded entities, so all of your assets are yours. So there's no asset protection unless you have partners. Another time it makes sense to actually have an LLC is if you want to use hard money, or if you're going to use a type of lending where the lender says we will only lend to an LLC. Totally makes sense to have one. Some people will get an LLC for anonymity, which is confusing to me because I'm wondering what you're hiding. I want my tenants to know that I'm the landlord. I want them to interact with me, and we have a better relationship because of that. You are more likely to get sued if your properties are in an LLC because people think of companies or corporations as having deeper pockets than a person. So if you have an LLC, you increase the odds of you being sued. So all of the negatives of saying no tax benefits, no asset protection, yes, there's a long list of reasons why none of my properties are in an LLC. If you need to get healthcare for your family, sometimes creating an LLC can make sense because that opens up more options for you. I have had LLCs. I run a nonprofit that does job. I ran a nonprofit. I retired this year in July. It's in an LLC. I ran a truck driving school, commercial driver school in Washington, where it is a part of an LLC. The business structure made sense because it wasn't a single member LLC. But for real estate, there are 3 forms of asset protection to actually answer your question. And thank you for this because it's a great question. The first form of asset protection is insurance. When you drive your car down the road, you have insurance. So you have a property, you're probably going to get sued, whether it's a rental or your primary house. Pet can bite somebody, somebody can slip, doesn't matter. Car can crash into you. Their insurance can sue you for something. It's likely to happen. We're in a litigious society. So we have insurance. Make sure that insurance does a couple things. One, it covers the full replacement value of the property, not just to make the mortgage happy and make the mortgage whole. You want the building to be replaced if there's a full burn down. Make sure that your injury slip fall coverage is enough. And then I did this at 4 properties, probably could have done it at 3. So once I had a couple of properties and the net worth started to build up, or the gross value started to build up, I got an umbrella policy. So up to $300,000 on any property. If somebody's injured, the policy for that property handles it. If it goes above that, then the $2 million umbrella policy kicks in. So that protects your assets. The second form is people talk about, do you want to have your mortgage paid off? I actually like having a mortgage. It's a form of asset protection. The bank or the lender is in first position on those properties. So while I have 7 properties, 16 units, 6 properties have mortgages, and I do not intend to pay them off. In 30 years, they'll probably be paid off, but by then I'll probably adopt some of Matt's strategies and recycle some capital and redo the loans and take out some of the, create some debt on an existing asset and put that money to work somewhere else. And the third form of asset protection is, I mentioned it last, but it is the most important one. It's the one that you actually have the most control of. Fix stuff.
Yeah.
Like be proactive, do walkthroughs, have your handyman do walkthroughs, listen to Section 8 when they do an annual walkthrough. If your tenant says this is an item that needs repaired, if it's the door is loud when it slams, all right, so you're going to adjust the jamb. That's not a today issue. But if they call and they say every time I move the window, it slams down like a guillotine, my guy's on his way. Be there in a few minutes, right? You make a call. So that's the 3 things: insurance, leverage, fix stuff, be proactive. An LLC provides no asset protection unless you have partners, and it provides no tax benefits. So that is the shortest version of how I can put that into words. So hopefully the people who've heard it before didn't all dip out.
Pallavi, thank you so much for the super chat. Dion, about going through those banks acquiring rates and thing about loan comparison, won't it bring your credit score down? No.
So it's a great question. And I started the very first sentence. If you ever watch it again, you don't need to, but if you watch it again, the very first sentence was, when a lender runs your credit, like lenders, so similar lenders. So if you go out and you're going to have a home entertainment system put in and they want to run your credit, and then you want to go out and look at a house mortgage, that will ding your credit twice. But if you have a mortgage lender run your credit for 30 days, you have a window of opportunity. They encourage mortgage lender shopping. So for 30 days, as many draws on your credit as you want doesn't have an additional impact. You're going to lose about 6 points for that hard inquiry, but you're not going to have an additional impact on your credit score. Something that you can actually have an impact on your credit score that matters is I pay my credit card off every single day. I've never carried a balance on my credit card from one day to the next is my goal, but I have memory issues, right? So there was a period of time about 2 months ago where I didn't pay my card for about 3 days, and there was $240 something on there, and I took a screenshot. It's the only change in my credit score. 0 balance every single month. And then 1 month, a 200 and I can't find it, 200 and something dollar balance. 31 points off my credit score. Because of a $200 balance on my credit card.
It's crazy.
So, our credit system is stupid. But yes, you do get a 30-day window when you lender shop where additional inquiries do not have an additional impact to your credit score. So that's a great question. And it's one of the few things that our system seems to get right, that they encourage you to go out and get the best deal you can.
Oh, this tenant is going to get thrashed.
Howdy, Andrew. I see you said hello. It's good to see you here.
So, Dividend Dave, sorry I'm late. Can you repeat everything you said in the last 2 hours? Too lazy to rewind. Thanks. Appreciate the $5. Can't do that.
I could sum up. If you're watching crash videos, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, that's
there we go.
pretty
2
much
hours.
it. Yeah, and then some self-management by the lumberjack landlord here. So you want to see how accommodating the lumberjack is? He said, are you able to have someone there during that time? 24 hours notice is not enough time to plan accordingly for us to install one piece of baseboard heat in the guy's room. And I said, my licensed electrician is only available at that time. It was more than 24 hours notice because he didn't look at it. He goes, well, I couldn't respond within the 24 hours notice. Dude, I sent it at 9:30, like your problem. So here's the thing. What could he do? Maybe he wants to call and get a good laugh from code enforcement. If he calls code enforcement and then they call me and I show them or talk to them about these texts, they're going to laugh at the guy. They're going to call him back and go, you are the one who stopped your landlord from fixing the issue that isn't a legal or safety issue. It's your issue. He was being nice and going above and beyond. So yeah. So then I even said, I said, okay, I can have him do it at 3 tomorrow. How about that? That's within the 24 hours. Because I'm just going to have him go on the back side of the other job instead of the front side. Thanks for coming in and working the situation. What does that mean? I don't know. What's that mean? So send him at 3. Is that okay?
While you're handling that, let me answer this question
Please.
from a palindrome. Name says, looking at a 203K loan property, don't know anything about it. If you do, can you please speak about it a bit? I know the contractor has to be licensed and they have to come out of pocket to start. So it's a little more detailed than that. And Matt has done them and has more information, but here's the layman's. I haven't done it either, but I know a little bit about it. First, the 203K loan. Your contractors should always be licensed, but second, they have to understand the process of finishing a portion of the project and then being paid, and then finishing another portion of the project and then being paid. So it's kind of coming out of pocket. It's not getting paid until portions of the project are done. That's the hard part, is finding the contractor who's willing to work with the system, especially when contractors are busy. So if it's a slow period in your market and contractors aren't busy, it might be easier to do. There's 2 versions of the 203K loan. There's the one where it basically looks at the whole scope of the project and the lender will basically direct it around that project. And then there's the streamlined where they just go, here's $35,000 to do the deal. And Matt has, I know you've used one. I don't know if you've used both of them.
Yeah, I've used both. So I've used full doc construction loans, which are basically like 5 to 7 gates and payments. I've used the regular 203s and I've used, which is kind of like a construction loan. Don't like that product nearly as much as I like an actual construction loan from a company, and that's in doing a rehab. But the 203K streamline is pretty slick. It's basically $35,000. You basically spend all the money that you need to on the materials, but the challenge with it is you have to have GCs, a general contractor, fill out all of the paperwork. And then you have to have the subs fill out all of the paperwork. In the last 2 years, it's been so crazy busy with work for those guys. Guess what? Nothing you can do. So what ends up happening is that 203Ks were almost like non-existent because no contractor wanted to go through the time. And the other issue is that the payment structure of how they get paid is not until the final inspection. So they get paid halfway through, but then not until the final inspection. So they have to literally carry your costs for that time. Kind of a nightmare. So the 203K is absolutely an option, but I would go through that process. This guy's brutal. So anyway, I'm still just, so that's what I would tell you. The 203K is actually a really good product. The challenge you'll have is probably getting GCs to do it. And honestly, if you're doing it with all these, guys that have all their GC licenses and all this extra stuff, they're going to charge you for the time to put that paperwork together, because it's not a small task. It's probably 4 to 6 hours for them to do everything that needs to be done for that. And so it's a cost to them. So it's kind of tough to kind of get that done. Hopefully that's helpful to you guys. Dan, anything else to add to that?
Nope. You
I
nailed
know
it.
that I know that we have a bunch of other questions that we can't get to, but I'm going to end the live chat because I need to go kick some proverbial arse. I have to see if I can accommodate Mr. Chili. And I offered, so just to be clear, guys, as you guys are learning how to be landlords, you're going to get these annoying moments for sure. But it should feel more annoying, in all honesty, because we're human, that when you've offered 3 other options for him and they've all been shot down, and then you bend over backwards to pay extra for somebody to come out on a Saturday to do it, and then that's still not good enough. Yes, I agree with Dion, probably walk away from the phone for a little bit, but I was very nice. And now he's like, hey, I'm still not available. Okay, then I don't know what to tell you. It's the way that it goes. I can't do anything about it. So now he can wait a few weeks. And if he wants to call somebody like code enforcement or something like that, he's more than welcome to. I'll just share with him exactly what I tried to do. Dion.
One last thing that I want to wrap up before we
Yeah.
close the live stream. Thank everybody for hanging out with us on a random Friday.
Absolutely.
We're trying to do this every Friday. Next Friday would be on my channel or Millennial Mike's channel. We're going to rotate through. So wherever it ends up, look forward to seeing you there. I wanted to talk really quick to Pallavi's point about it. It literally wasn't a missed payment. So my balance increase, and it was a 23 point change. So I had my brain flip the numbers around. So 23 points down because my balance increased by $209 from 30 to 239. That, and it wasn't a late payment. It's the day of the month that they check your credit on. So, and also avoid late payments, because that could stay on your credit for 7 years.
Yeah. Late payments.
I automate everything.
Yeah. Late payments will absolutely crush you. So guys, I'm going to go off and do some landlording, being the lord of my land.
And I will be the lord of my land, because I'm off to play some World of Warcraft and play some PvP and piss some people off.
It's awesome. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you. Please make sure before you leave, you hit that like button. Guys, thank you so much for the super chats. It's always a pleasure to be here. We'll have our Sunday live stream as usual this coming Sunday. Before I leave town, we're absolutely thrilled to get out, do some vacation. And then D, we'll see you there. And then we're doing 3 Amigos on Tuesday. So guys, have an absolutely awesome time. And Oscar, real quick, I don't want anybody else hiring anybody else to do work in my house. It's still my house. And I don't know their qualifications. I don't know their costs. And I have a relationship with my vendors. I also know the quality of their work. And I also know that they do it legally and pass inspection. So I have zero interest. Dion, go ahead.
And it's in the lease, Oscar, that tenants
Yes.
can't make alterations or improvements to
100%.
the property without written permission of the owner. So we kind of protect ourselves in advance of that thought of tenants doing something like, I had them come in and take out a wall. It's more of an open space now. Here's the bill. It can't happen. Or it can happen. You're just not going to pay the bill. It's tenant's bill.
Yeah. And that's why from a tenant perspective, so we have that in the lease, but even if we gave them that permission, I'm not going to ever give that permission ever. Because I don't know, I've spent 20 years building my business, making sure that I have a certain quality of work, making sure that I have a certain quality of vendor and tradesman. I know that he has his licenses. I know that he has his insurances. So yeah, that is not a no es bueno, but that is a great question, Oscar. So thank you very much for asking it. Dion, I'll wrap at you soon, my friend.
Ciao.
See you guys. Are we over yet?